So, welcome back, everybody, welcome to the first time if you haven't been before to another Life After Stroke support group meeting. I'm here with the lovely Rachel, and we're going to be guiding you guys through this support group meeting today. And our topic is all about beating the winter blues. I know I personally have been fighting some winter blues, even though I just said that I felt like it hasn't been as cold as past years. I think with some of the shutdowns and everything that we've been going through with COVID, on top of it just being so frigid, um, I need some positive energy and sunshine in my life. So hopefully we can all boost our spirits during today's meeting. So just to run through our agenda for the night, we'll all do a check-in and Rachel will guide us through that. And we'll all just say what we're feeling as we come into the meeting today. I'll let Rachel explain that more and start it off for us. And then we're going to spend our whole meeting doing an open discussion. Rachel and I can start it off. Basically, just talk about what you might be doing that's different in terms of beating the winter blues. Are you still able to do the same things that you did pre-stroke to beat the winter blues? And can you do them now post-stroke? I know I've talked to a lot of people that have some deficits as far as physical or cognitive that don't allow them to participate in the same self-care activities. So hopefully by sharing what we're all doing, we can pick up some new ideas. And then once we go through our open discussion, I should mention, I will put everybody on a 3-minute timer during the open discussion, just so we can make sure everybody has a chance to participate. You're going to hear my phone timer go off when the 3 minutes is up. Don't feel like you need to take the full 3 minutes. If you don't feel like that's natural for you, that's totally fine. And also I'll just ask that you either raise your digital hand or your physical hand, and we'll call on you to speak and join the discussion. So once that open discussion is over, Rachel is going to talk about some exciting homework that I have no idea what's in store, and I'm actually very, very excited to do it because I do love homework and I'm a huge nerd. So if you are too, please feel free to embrace that side of you. And then we'll just finish with some final remarks from everybody. So Rachel, I'll turn it over to you to guide us through our check-in.
Thanks, Ella. And I should share too that Ella and I had just discovered that this is our 1-year anniversary of the stroke support group.
Mm-hmm. Happy anniversary.
So discovered that accidentally because I opened up the agenda for February 23rd, 2021. And I thought that doesn't look right. So that's exciting. And as far as the check-in, I just wanted to go around and have everybody share one word that describes how they're coming into the meeting. So to start, I'm not feeling too creative with my words, but excited, just simply excited to hear from this group. Next on my screen is Carolyn.
If I have one word, I will use hopeful.
Thank you. Lara, you're next on my screen.
Positive.
Thank you. Shannon.
Cold.
Coco. Okay, we can skip you or we can come back to you if you do decide to share. Next on my screen is Haas.
I feel great.
Thanks for sharing that. Sarah.
I was anxious.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Tashari.
I'm feeling positive.
And Ella, do you want to finish off?
Yeah, I was gonna say excited, but then Caroline, you got me. I'm gonna steal your word, and I think I'm gonna use hopeful as well.
Thanks. So I think we'll just launch right into it. Like we're just talking about winter, how I mean, for me, it's always a tough time of year. I notice every single year I have mood shifts. Part of that is weather, sunlight related. Part of it is not being able to do all the things that usually support my wellness, like spending the same amount of time outside and activity that I would do during the spring or summer. So yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to share first, like maybe what's most challenging for you, what's most helpful, differences between pre and post stroke. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I will start. Definitely walking has been huge therapy for me since the stroke. My vision is still somewhat impaired, so it took me a while to feel comfortable walking outside. And so yeah, the weather has definitely made it more difficult to get outside walking. I have invested in some, warmer clothing, and I'm trying to still get out there even when it's cold. It might not be as long of a walk, but even if I can just get around the block, it definitely helps. But the last few days it's been, down to minus 34 and stuff. So it's a little too cold to go very far. But yeah, even standing on the deck for 5-10 minutes just to get some fresh air. So looking forward to being able to get back out there and have decent walks, but just waiting for that weather.
It's awesome that you're at least making do with what you can. And if it's sitting on the porch for 2 seconds or just looking out the window like it is for me, because I am definitely scared of the cold. Yeah, just trying to get in that sunlight and that vitamin D. And sometimes we just have to adjust to what's going on in our surroundings and our environment. So thank you so much for sharing that, Caroline. Does anybody else want to share?
Yeah, I'll go. So I find that going to the gym has been, now the gyms, when they reopened, oh, so grateful, because that's where I can exercise. And I find that the more I exercise, the more energy I actually have to be able to do everything else that I do. And I find that when the gyms were closed and I was sitting around and not doing anything and watching TV, reading, yes, I was doing other things, but I wasn't physically active. I sleep better when I exercise. I feel better. And it was such a great thing to be able to get back into my routine. And because I find the routine, consistency and routine makes my life a lot easier. And without that, you wake up whenever you wake up, you eat whenever everything's off. And then I don't sleep as well. And then because I don't sleep as well, I'm sleepy during the day. Like I'm just so it's a domino effect. So I find that consistency of my routine has been great.
I think consistency is a great point, and I want to talk about momentum in a sec. But first, I'll ask you, since we still have 2 minutes on the clock, how did you find adjusting from gyms not being open to being open? And was there anything that you did to help make that adjustment?
Yeah. So what I did was I went for walks, and I went for walks with friends, because it was really, especially when everything shut down, it was the only way to have any socialization was going for a walk outside, because there was no indoor get-togethers, there was no lunches with friends, there was no dinners, there was just nothing. And so I really enjoyed it because I got to catch up with my friends. And last winter I was able to walk a couple times a week. This winter, January, because of that massive snowstorm, the sidewalks weren't even cleared, so I couldn't walk. But we did walk. I'm not far from Yonge Street, so what we would do is on Sunday we drove to Yonge, we parked right at the corner, and we walked along Yonge Street where it's completely clear. And I could walk in my running shoes, not my boots, because there's no snow, and felt really, really good to be able to get out and walk, which was the first walk I had done since like the beginning of January because of all the snow.
That's awesome. Cool.
So
Thank you.
yeah, so the social connection of walking outside with friends and being able to just walk and do
Yeah.
some form of exercise.
Yeah, even I know some people will, and of course, when the malls are shut down, you can't do this, but I know lots of people who will just go to the mall just to walk.
Yeah.
It's an open space. You often don't have crowds of people. I guess it depends on which mall you're going to and what time of year it is. But yeah, just finding anywhere in your surroundings where you can just get in some physical activity. So that's awesome.
I did that years before the pandemic. I used to walk the malls, once a week or so.
Nice. That's awesome. Perfect. Awesome.
In the
Thank you
winter.
for sharing, Laura. All right. Does anybody else want to share anything about beating the winter blues? What you do, maybe it doesn't even have to be something that you do. You can talk about or just ask advice. If you can explain your current situation, and maybe somebody can offer some tips for how you can beat the winter blues.
I used to walk in the winter time, like the last 2-3 winters, but this year it has been cold and it has been actually very icy this year.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, I went to Niagara Falls. We were walking, and I took a nice wipe out, and then I said to myself, you know what? I'm not gonna walk outside right now in the icy and all that. So I'll just go to the mall. After my classes, I'll go to the mall and I do my walk, get on the bus, and then come home. So I won't go outside anymore to go just for like a stroll or a walk or something, because ice, it just killed my knee, right? So I said to myself, you know what? I can wait another 3 months, and then when it gets better weather, I'll go for my long walks and all that, right? So. But yeah, it's tough not going out for walks sometimes, right? Because if you're sometimes indoors or something, you want to just go out, get that fresh air, relax the mind, and you want to just be by yourself and do your walking, right? So yeah, so that's it.
Well, I'm sorry you fell. I
Oh,
hope you're okay.
Yeah, it's it's part of life, right? If you fall, you fall, but you know what? Knock on wood, I didn't break anything, right? So that's the main thing. I thought I must have cracked something or fractured or something, and I'm lucky I didn't. The way I fell on the ice, so I said to myself, "Oh my God, I hope I didn't break or fracture something." That's the good part, right? So the falling was, I know it was brutal, but long as I didn't break anything, that's the main thing.
Yes, definitely. Oh, that's good attitude. And you know
Yeah.
what that reminds me of? Tell anybody here, you just tell me if you can recall the song Chumbawamba Tub Thumping, where I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Yeah. And
That's what that reminds me of us.
when I fell, I couldn't get up by myself. So this gentleman stopped his car. He came and picked me up and got me up. And I slowly put my legs straight, and then I walked it off. And it was hurt. And then I said to myself, when I came home, then I put, like a lot of oil on my knee,
Mhm.
and I rubbed it for like a couple of days. And then I like walked up and down the stairs at home.
Mhm.
And then finally it got better. And then I did some x-rays, and like I said, knock on wood, nothing fractured and broken, but it was crazy. I was like, oh no, right? So, but it was nice
Oh,
the gentleman to get out of his car and just pick me up, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
I have a question, but what we'll do, I'll circle back to the question. Keeping notes here on the side, have one for Laura, one for you. But what we'll do is we'll move on, see if anyone else wants to contribute, and then we can come back to those questions. Thank you for sharing.
You up?
I want to add something when I get a chance. I can just want to just say that for anybody that struggles with actually getting out there and walking because they're either depressed, sad, frustrated, whatever, and they say they're going to get out there and walk and they can't, or they can, but they're just, it's not lazy, it's just hard to get out, I found what was easy for me or made it easier was to make plans with a friend to walk. with somebody so that I was committed to that time. So I had to set my alarm for a certain time to be able to get up to meet them. As opposed to just like in the summertime, I could go for a walk by myself, no problem. But in the winter, I found it really harder because you look outside and you're just like, oh, and you make up excuses. Well, it's too cold. I can't. There's snow. I could trip. I could fall, and you don't want to walk because it's hard and you're scared. And if you make plans with the friends, there's the commitment, there's the safety, just easier. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for sharing that. And I completely agree. If there are a number of cons that are going to keep you from doing whatever you think you need to do to make yourself happier, beat those winter blues, but they outweigh the pros, then you got to find some more pros to stack up that list a little bit higher and get you motivated. So I think that's a good point. So thanks for sharing that. If I call on you, by the way, feel free to pass. But I will call on some people just to get everybody involved. Again, if you're not comfortable, you can just pass. Brian, I see that you joined us. Did you want to add anything to how you might beat the winter blues or some self-care that you do when it's snowing outside?
Pretty simple. When the weather is basically nice, I see cars like the one behind me, and if it's bad, I do Lego sets.
Oh, okay.
They both kind of count as occupational therapy because with Lego, small parts, and with RC cars, fine motor movement.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like you're killing two birds with one stone, so to speak, because that's
And then
fun. And then
there's-
you're working on your fine motor movement.
And then there was the semi-frustration of painting the body of the car behind me because it was all clear at first.
But you figured it out.
Yep.
That's awesome.
The only things I cheated on are some stickers.
Hey, what works, right?
Yep.
That's awesome. Was that something that you always enjoyed doing? Like doing the Legos? Because I know you fixed cars before, right? Or you really like cars, right?
The Legos, not so much, but the RC cars I've been into for more than 30 years.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Found something that works for you. That's great. Does anybody else have like a craft or a creative activity like Brian that they find themselves doing to beat the winter blues? Anyone?
Done a lot of puzzles.
Puzzles. Yes. Who was that? I heard words, but was that Sarah?
Yeah.
Sarah, yeah. What kind of puzzles do you do?
Just kind of whatever. Free stroke, I definitely did more, not necessarily challenging, but definitely more like pieces per se. And now I do smaller ones. I find too it's like Brian mentioned, kind of to do with OT, kind of the fine motor skills. But I enjoy doing kind of smaller ones now that I can, kind of do in one sitting and then it's done. So yeah, I used to do like at least 1,000 pieces. Now I'm doing like 500 or less.
Wow. And that's in one sitting. You can do that.
Yeah, that's so impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always loved puzzles.
Amazing. Yeah, I think I was working on 1,000-piece puzzle for months and months, and I don't think I finished it. I ended up moving and I just was like, well, I'll just pack it up. So that's really cool, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that everybody so far who's spoken said that or made a point in during their little talk that you've been adapting to whatever your surroundings were, or I used to do it differently, but now I do it this way. And you seem to be okay with that. And that's fantastic because ultimately, if we're not adapting and we're being very, I guess, stubborn in our ways, then we won't be beating the winter blues. We're letting them beat us, right? So that's great to hear from everyone. Anybody else do any sort of crafting or creative work?
I have one I can show you because I'm looking at it.
Yes.
I basically spent all winter last year. So this winter I'm living in BC. It's been a different experience for me because it doesn't get nearly as cold. I've always really struggled with winter. Here we don't get a lot of sun, so that's kind of its own struggle. More sun in Toronto where I was before, but really, really cold. And last year I spent almost the entire winter working on this paint by numbers. And I would wake up and I would put on my to-do list, like do at least 5 sections of this paint by numbers because I didn't have much of a structure. I had to like really grasp at straws creating a routine for myself. But I'll show you because I moved with it because I was really proud of it and it's right in front of me.
Oh, that's,
Ooh,
oh, I love it.
Beautiful.
very pretty.
It's like so intricate. I can't even describe to you how, I think I probably put 50 hours into it. I wasn't working. It was like really something I was willing to put a lot of time into. But I actually found it really helpful in the end. Like it's such a beautiful product. Now I get to look at it when I'm at my desk and I love to look at it. It's beautiful. And it felt good because I could really measure my progress. Like it's right there in front of me visually how much I've done and how far I've gone through the whole process.
I think that's a great point that you just made at the end. 2 great points, but I'll touch on the most recent one when you said you can measure your progress and it's right there. I was just hearing, I think on the radio, because I'm that person that listens to talk radio when I'm driving to and from work, that with the pandemic, students in particular, but I'm sure lots of people who work in an office, normally they're not getting the sort of validation that their work is being seen and done. So they don't feel that they're being productive if they're now working from home, that is. So to do something like that, Rachel, or like Legos or anything where you can actually see your progress and what you made, you're seeing that you're doing something and it's productive, and that's just giving you a feeling that you're feeling, but you did something productive and good for yourself. So I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Any one of you that's worked with an occupational therapist, like we're very into measurable outcomes. So it's for that exact reason that you just mentioned, Ella, so that you can really tangibly see your progress, even though, you might not feel it. You might not wake up today feeling like, I've done a lot or I have a lot to do, or I'm, actually making strides towards reaching these goals. So if you're able to measure it by like looking at something or, writing it down on paper or having somebody else hold you accountable, like there's real evidence to support that you're doing it. You're doing great.
Yeah, and that's actually what I tell a lot of people that I speak to, us stroke survivors, when it comes to, progress, whether it's walking, moving their arms, doing any type of activity, physical activity, or even cognitive activity, is to ask people to have someone videotape them walking, have somebody videotape them lifting their arm. Like when kids are little, there's always a wall that they measure their growth, right? And they come to see, okay, every birthday or every 6 months they measure growth. Well, you kind of want to do the same thing, because then you can, if you have somebody videotape you, then you can't watch yourself walk, even if you have a mirror in front of you. It's not the same. So I know for myself, when I watched videos of myself walking, I could then see the progress that my physio would talk about. I'm like, I don't see progress because it doesn't feel like that to me. I'm still hip hiking. I'm still swinging my leg around. He goes, yeah, but you're doing it so much less than you used to be. I'm like, well, how do I see that? And by watching the video, I'd go, oh, now I can see. And I found that really rewarding. And then also measuring my distance, my speed, setting goals for myself, whether it's I'm going to walk 1 kilometer, or block. So that's, you can start in blocks, you can start in feet. Whatever measure is that, I want to be able to walk X, whatever, not by a certain day, because I don't like putting people having stopwatches or deadlines. But because then if you deadline comes and you didn't meet your goal, then you're disappointed. But if you say, I'd like to be able to walk 2 blocks, if you can only walk a half a block, okay, I want to get to 2 blocks. So I'm going to work on that. If the half a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, eventually you can start measuring in kilometers, miles, however you want. And I've seen my progress going from my first time I walked was 5 feet to walking, 6.5 kilometers over many years.
That's awesome.
So
I love that idea of videotaping.
yeah, it's really, really helpful because you get to actually see it. You see what other people see.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really great idea.
And even with my speech, the first couple of years, I had a very monotone voice. I was very, very flat, no expression in it at all. I don't have what I used to have before my stroke. I have more intonation in my voice, but that was affected. So the first time I heard myself speak was 20 months after my stroke. And I said to my husband, that's what because I was speaking. And I said, that's what I sound like. And I was sort of shocked. And then I would, work on my intonation and really try and concentrate on having intonation in my voice when I spoke. And then I would have videotaped a year later or whatever. Whether it's with speech, and just measuring, videotaping with physical stuff, it's really beneficial and motivating.
Motivating for sure. I'm so happy you brought that up because even as something that when I was doing habit coaching, that I would tell my clients if they were trying to create a new habit, that if it's not something where you could really see the outcome, say it's running. This is something that I personally did. If I was originally trying to get into the habit of going for jogs at a certain time every single morning, and this is before I enjoyed going for the jogs or the runs. And so what I would do right after every single run is just videotape myself saying how I felt, which was usually great. And I would always say, I didn't want to go. I was super tired, but it was worth it. And this way, the next time you don't feel motivated, you can look at yourself telling you that it was worth it. So to your point, Laura, motivating your future self, your past self motivating your future self, basically, to reach your goals. So yeah, videotaping is definitely a really, really useful way to get things done. Anybody else that hasn't shared yet want to share maybe some self-care strategies or if you have no winter around you, you don't have to think about it like beating the winter blues, just some self-care strategies that you maybe use. I don't think we've heard from Shannon yet. I don't know if you want to participate, Shannon.
Sure. I said it was cold as my first word there, but I do enjoy going outside. So I go ice fishing, but I go into a shack where it's nice and warm. I always want to say horseshoeing, but it's not horseshoeing. Snowshoeing. I did that once, quickly discovered though that my left foot goes to the right. So maybe I got to work on that a little bit, but forcing myself outside, even if it's cold, and finding something that I enjoy to do outside. So.
That's awesome. Was it you just started snowshoeing like over the past?
Yeah, good time to learn that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the cold after a stroke. Okay.
It's hard. That's very hard. The fact that you can do it at all is incredible.
Well, I didn't do it for very far or long, but I will
You
keep
took a
practicing.
step, took more than a step. That's my opinion. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
that's
you.
great. Super. Thank you, Shannon. Does anybody else? Coco, if you want to share, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Oh, you're just muted. You just gotta unmute yourself. They might be able to do it. Ask to unmute. There should be like a little microphone in the bottom left. And if you there you go.
Oh, got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So lucky, first time to join this meeting.
Welcome.
So yeah. Okay, I had the stroke on August, right? But fortunately, after 3-4 months, I'm still recovering. I'm still having the outpatient program. Yeah, so then actually the recovery it's pretty good. I mean, doesn't affect my speech, my movement, so very, very lucky. So, but yeah, just talk about the snowshoeing, that's my favorite. So I think just a month ago, we went to North, my partner's friend, we spent 2 nights there. We spent 3 hours on the snowshoeing. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's we snowshoeing in the forest, and we spend the time in the cabin. It's a abandoned cabin. We're not sure. Like when those people abandoned that cabin, and we still the clothes, some furniture, even the stove still there, right? Yeah, it's really good time. It's 3 hours. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Where are you joining us from, Coco? Are you in Canada then, or?
I'm in Toronto.
Yeah, okay, so you're close to where I am. That's awesome. Well, welcome to your first meeting.
Yeah. I'd like to say thank you. Give me this opportunity to join this group. So yeah, I will enjoy. So nice to see everybody. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. And I'm going to have to follow in both your footsteps, Coco and Shannon, and start snowshoeing. I keep saying I want to try it. Hopefully this will be the year and I can get it done before spring comes around.
Yeah, you gotta try, snowshoeing is so peaceful, it's really, even if you dress properly,
Yeah.
it's not cold at all, right? Then you just walk in the snow, you see the tree, the view is totally different from summertime, it's so peaceful. I really love it. And I think this weekend we will go north again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, so nice to see you guys,
All right, I think there's just one more person that we haven't heard from. If you want to share, Tashari. And if not, because I know we're recording, that is totally fine too. Feel free to just unmute and or raise your digital. Oh, there we go.
I think I'm gonna pass. I'm just listening.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Thank you. Let's see, no digital hands are up. I was gonna add something. Oh, we were talking about 2 things I wanted to add. One was momentum. Laura was mentioning that, I think when you first shared, and then the other one, I had a question for Haas. And now I see actually Brian has his digital hand up. So maybe we'll hit up Brian first.
Sure.
Brian, you can go ahead and then I'll touch on that after.
Real quick, I know how Rachel feels. That updated thing is all Lego, almost 4,000 pieces.
Oh, is that the one that you put the stickers on?
No,
Oh, you painted that.
that's Lego set.
Oh,
But
the Legos.
everything in the picture is the little dots, and to Laura's thing, I have I do YouTube videos just to hear the difference in my speech. It doesn't sound like a lot, but oh my God, a year ago was really horrible.
And Brian, I will say, one thing that I was thinking of when you first started talking was how much I believe your speech has improved. Because if you were at our very first meeting or one of our first meetings, that would have been almost one full year ago. And so I think that's awesome. I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, I think it's really cool that you framed your Lego. So when you actually see it behind you, does it make you feel any certain way?
Just, I cannot believe how long that thing took me. That was like 5 days. Because the pieces are so small, my hand kept cramping up. And then I knew it was break time.
And you finished it.
Yep. Thankfully.
That's awesome. I mean, that's definitely not an easy thing to do.
And there was even a much harder version to do it. You could buy 2 more of those sets and make it a Darth Vader from the waist up, but just that one was $119. I wasn't gonna spend that much. That was enough.
I like the one that you picked.
Well, it was him, Darth Maul, or Ben Solo, or whatever his bad guy name was. So I chose him.
That's Darth Vader, right?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know much about Star Wars, but I know that guy.
That's okay.
Thank you. That's awesome, Brian.
Thanks for
you.
showing us. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Actually, since we're all sharing, or some of us are sharing our pieces, I will add to the list of things that we're all sharing. I will share my piece. So this is, if you can see, an acrylic pour. I'm not an expert by any means, but basically what you do, for nobody who's done this before, if you're into painting, this is just get a little tiny canvas, or whatever size canvas. This is a little tiny canvas. I covered it in white acrylic mixed with school glue. So it's just a thinner consistency. And then you get whatever colors you want. I used red and a little bit of gold. And same thing, you mix it with some glue to thin it out. And then in the red, I added silicone drops. And then you just pour it on. And then you can get a wet paper towel and drag it across. And the silicone and then the thin consistency of the paint just kind of makes these little cool cells.
Very pretty.
Thank you. And I actually did this to apply for it was like a project, something out of Toronto. Maybe I'll think of it, or Laura, maybe you can or think of it as well. Something to do with, the Brain Project. Have you heard of it, Laura?
I
people
think
even?
I've seen it. I think I've seen postings on Facebook or something about it.
Yeah. Okay, so basically you make a painting if you get selected, you submit a painting, and if you get selected, you can paint or do whatever type of creative activity you want on a brain. They send you like just a clay brain. And so you
Cool.
decorate it, you paint it, and then you can sell it. And then all of the proceeds go to a brain injury related project. I did not get selected, but it still brings me a lot of peace because I feel like it's a representation of my brain injury. So for those of you who are new here, I'm a brain injury survivor. When I was 14, I had a hemorrhagic stroke, an AVM rupture in my cerebellum. And that's kind of like the red blood. But the gold kind of represents the areas of how my brain has healed and my mind has healed. And so, yeah, that's just my little reminder of how I've used my mind to retrain my brain. And so I keep it in my room and yeah, makes me feel good. Anybody else have?
Beautiful.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's great. I love that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's nice.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to visually share?
For that. Let me just say real quick, sorry for that extreme close up.
No, that's okay. We got to see it. That was good. We needed the extreme close up of the Lego.
Oh, I meant on my face.
Oh, I didn't even notice. No problem. Is anybody, we'll switch gears. Maybe we're all talking a lot about a lot of creative things that we do or walking, or maybe I'll pose a question. Has there been any sort of self-care activity that you guys have done in the past pre-stroke that you're struggling to do post-stroke? Has that affected you at all? And have you been able to, because maybe you haven't, have you been able to find a way to work through that and maybe adapt? And if you can think of something, feel free to share it if you're comfortable.
Okay, I like to share something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, this is my knitting. So my new hobby, right? That's a dish cloud.
I love it.
Right, so that's 100% cotton, right? So yeah, it's nice, some I give to friends, as a small gift, right? So yeah, have fun.
That's awesome, Coco.
Yeah.
And did you knit or crochet those?
Knit.
Knit them. Did you
Yeah.
knit before your stroke or did you just learn how to do that?
Oh, actually, it's when I was like 6 or 7 years old. So my mom taught me how to knitting, right? So then after that, I stopped for how many years, right? So then after stroke, so because I gotta stay home, for how many months, right? So I think, I gotta do something, keep myself busy, right? So really good for knitting, right? So like every year, every Christmas, she will give everybody some tissue cloth, right? For this, right? So she taught me to do this. So it's yeah, I did a lot, for my friends, even sometimes I bring some back to the rehab, yes, that's good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like the colors that you're using as well.
Oh yeah, and yeah, lots of fun,
Yeah.
Mm.
It's so cold. You could knit a scarves.
Right, yeah. So yeah, maybe I wear a little scarf. When I was before a long time ago, I laid in like a scarf, like gloves, right? So yeah, I will pick that up again.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see more at the next meeting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else to share regarding beating the winter blues? If not, I have that question I want to pose to Haas, and maybe we can all chime in. But if you have something to say right now, feel free to unmute yourself. Oh no. Okay, so Haas, I'm wondering, so when you shared your story, you mentioned that you fell and somebody
Pick me-
stopped to get out of the car to help you up. Now, if I remember correctly from a year ago at our first meeting,
Mhm.
do you need any assistance when you're walking? Did you
I
occasionally?
use a cane.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I use it.
Were you using the cane at the time, can I ask?
I had it on my affected side. I used it on that side. I had it on that side.
Yeah, okay.
On my right side. I'm supposed to have it on my left side, right? So I had it on my right side, and then I'm just walking, and then I just went down. I was like, whoa. And that was my stupidity. I should have had it on my left hand. But sometimes I said, okay, you know what? We have to try, right? So I said, let me try my right side and walk and with the cane. And I said, okay. So yeah.
That's good that you recognize that, but I think it's also good that you want to try, because
Yeah.
you don't know until you try, right?
Exactly.
Do you think do you have to use the cane all the time, or is just when you feel like
Well,
you need to?
in the house, I don't use it. I
Mhm.
can go up the stairs, down the stairs, because I have two railings on the side, on both sides. Yeah. But I take classes, right? So computer classes and English classes.
Right.
So I don't need to use it there because we hardly we go take our break, and the break is just a few doors down, right? Like the door to go just munch or like to drink water, because we cannot drink water in the class, right? Because of COVID, right?
Mhm.
So you have to use it, or I don't use it there. But when I'm outside, I use it. I go to the mall, I use it.
Oh, okay.
But there are times if I'm in the mall, I don't use it. I'm just carrying it, but it's down. I'm carrying it, but it's down. I don't carry it like it's like a baseball bat or something like that, right? It's down, but I don't use it, right? That's when I'm in the mall or something like that, right? So, but outside, yeah, I use it outside. Like with there's ice and all that,
Mhm.
right? So yeah. But yeah, that was my like I said, that was my mistake. But you learn from your mistake, right? So
Yeah.
you know,
Because I was wondering, because I thought you were using the cane
yeah,
occasionally, and
yeah.
I was wondering if you have found, maybe not so much now, maybe more towards the beginning, right
Mhm.
after your stroke,
Yeah.
if having that cane inhibits you from taking walks, or being in certain locations, and do you fight that
I
mentally?
fight it. I fight it,
Yeah.
but sometimes you want to try to walk without that cane because you want to get more stronger,
Mm-hmm.
right? You want your legs to be more stronger. You don't want it to seem like your leg is weak, right? You want to be more stronger, but it's what it is. You have to use the cane. You have to use the cane. But sometimes I try, like in the let's say summertime, I'll try without the cane, right? In the summertime because it's hot and there's nothing on the snow or something like that. There's no snow in the but still sometimes it's dangerous too when I do it in the summer because there's a lot of cracks too, right?
Mhm.
Right. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I wanted to just ask you that. So I love when you give advice and just sharing your experience. You seem to always learn from your experiences. So maybe somebody else in the group or somebody listening to this live will find it helpful.
Mm.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
then I see Sarah, you have your digital hand up. You can go right ahead and unmute yourself.
I just wanted to kind of follow up on what Haas was saying. When I was in the rehab facility, I started in a wheelchair because I can walk my own. Then I went to a walker and then to a four-wheeled to like a two-wheeled. Anyways, the physiotherapist suggested I try walking sticks instead of having to use a cane. It took me a while to kind of get used to, but again, it's something I have that I do find helpful, and especially like you guys have been talking about, like walking outside, you know, you can put different ends and stuff on them. So I do find that again, I don't know hostage situation, but I find that I'm not dependent on them, but I will use them if I feel like I need to. Like my dad has, you know, made a few comments like, oh, you're using your sticks again. Like, that's not good. And I'm like, no, I'd rather, you know, especially now when it's icy, I'd rather use my stick than fall, right? So, yeah. And I actually found that in doing research with them on them as well, the walking sticks, they do help with the walking, actually. So,
Keeps you balanced.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
do help, and you know what? It's so much better to be safe than sorry. I mean, Haas got lucky with his fall. He didn't hurt himself, but you know, you don't want to take the chance of and risk falling when you're dealing with ice. And the average person who didn't have a stroke, a lot of people fall and hurt themselves badly. And those are people who are able-bodied. When you're not fully able-bodied, you risk falling and hurting yourself, and then you regress, and then you have to take a giant step backwards, which you don't want to do. It's very unmotivating. It's very frustrating, and you're frustrated as it is. Why add to it? And you don't have to use the walking. I mean, the way I started off with a cane, and when I graduated from a quad cane to a single point cane, I mean, I would say in the beginning I used it really like a crutch, like I put a lot of all my weight into it. But over time, I started walking. The more walking I did, I started walking more erect, and the cane became more like you walk with an umbrella, just sort of for balance, and not as opposed to really using it like a crutch. So having the walking sticks, you don't have to use them, you know, the way you use them, you know, months ago. You can use them differently, but at least they're there for you if you do come across an icy patches or something, right? So it's really a safety thing. And I think you're smart to use them, as opposed to, if you're going to take a chance in a mall or at home or something like that, where someone's around you, so that if you did fall, you've got some sort of backup.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for adding that, Laura, and thank you, Sarah, for adding.
I like her saying about the walking stick, and you know, with the walking stick, there's a method of walking as well, right? There's a method. I think you have to, what is it? Left stick and then right leg, and then left leg and right stick, or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When I started, I was very, it took me a while to kind of get coordinated, but then to kind of measuring my improvement, I noticed I, you know, put the stick down, but I can take like 3 or 4 steps instead of, you know, 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, because that was kind of confusing.
Yeah. And in the wintertime, they have those spikes, right? You can put on the walking sticks.
Yep.
They have the spikes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I know it's not for everyone, but also just an alternative to a cane. I find it's been helpful, and because they're walking sticks, they kind of like fold up, so they're still kind of big, but not as big as a cane. I know they're kind of bulky, and not all of them sort of fold up. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. And maybe I might even call on Rachel, the expert, to share her opinion on this, just because, you know, everyone's talking about different methods and different things that they're using. And, you know, there was a time, gosh, 14 years ago now, where I was in a walker. And when I was coming out of it, at first there was only a couple classes where I allowed myself to walk without my walker, but I was in school and somebody would be with me. And then once I was comfortable on the flat ground, and then I sort of progressed to the next level. And then eventually I could go outside, and eventually I could be by myself, and so on. So I'm just wondering if Rachel has any thoughts on all this, since she is the occupational therapist expert in the room.
Well, Ella, I feel like you're just like hit the nail on the head. That's always what I'd recommend, no matter what. That's one of the only things that I feel like is fitted to every person, is just the idea of really like slow, gradual steps towards whatever the end goal is. Like what you're saying about using, like, you would see typical progression in walking aids, but it's not going to obviously be the same for every person. But it would be pretty typical to see somebody go from using a wheelchair to a two-wheeled walker to a four-wheeled walker to a quad cane to a single point cane. But to the point of the walking sticks, I'm a really big fan of walking sticks. I've found that with like a few of my clients, it's easier, especially younger people that I work with. It's easier to motivate somebody to go outside for a walk with walking sticks than often with a walker or a cane. Because understandably, like if you're concerned about how your community will view you as somebody who didn't need a walker to somebody who now needs a walker, that's often a big consideration that I'm having to kind of help my clients process and work through. And what I find is with the walking sticks, I mean, they're very athletic looking. A lot of people who don't have any sort of mobility impairment choose to use them because you actually get a better workout from walking with walking sticks. You're involving your upper body more and your core more. So a lot of people will just choose them for a more full-bodied exercise from walking. So it's really not as much of a standout as people feel like it might be to go outside with something that's purely a mobility aid. So I'm a big fan of the walking sticks, but it's going to be so different for every person.
Thanks, Rachel. And thank you, Sarah, for bringing that up. We just had I just learned a whole new topic about walking sticks that I never really learned before. So that's awesome. Thank you so much.
And you've got, I mean, I think one of the big advantages of walking sticks over a cane is that obviously there's two of them. You don't always have to be using two, but the idea is to use two. So your base of support, like it's like you're like a four-legged animal with 4 points as your base of support. So your balance is going to be way better. The whole point of the cane is to add like a third point to make your base of support a triangle. But now with the sticks, you've got a square and it's even bigger. So the balance factor is going to be huge. And that's a big thing, like we've been talking about falls. And of course, that's a big consideration is how do you avoid having a fall? Nobody wants to have a fall. And a great way to do that is to widen your base of support when you're moving, especially outside where there's bumps and gravel and curbs and lots of stuff that could be hazardous. That's my whole spiel.
Thank you. So we're talking a lot about walking and getting outside, which has been great to hear because I think almost everybody, if not everybody here, maybe except for Rachel, has snow around them. But we're all willing to sort of do something to brave the cold and the elements. And for me, I mentioned I am scared of the cold. For me, sometimes that's just literally sitting at the window or standing, and I would just look outside in my backyard and do a couple big deep breaths. Sometimes I need that in the morning, especially after a workout if I'm working out inside, but I see the sun shining through the window. I feel a lot better after I just get in that sunlight and I take those deep breaths. And then one thing I wanted to mention about motivation that Laura had reminded me about at the beginning of this chat was when, if anybody is facing a challenge to doing a self-care activity to, beat those winter blues, but you just can't seem to motivate yourself. We talked about some different ways to do that, such as videotaping. And one way that I like to encourage is don't make the challenge or the goal too big. So one example that I used earlier was going for a jog. And, originally my goal was I want to jog 5 kilometers in 25 minutes, which is like a pretty decent goal. I still haven't met it, by the way, and it's been 2 years, but I'm not putting any unrealistic expectations on myself. Now, I mentioned also earlier that I didn't really enjoy jogging. I just decided this is something that I want to do. And now, before I could even tell myself every single day, this time I want to start making it a habit of going for a jog, I needed to learn how to actually enjoy jogging, or going for runs. And to do that, I just told myself to at least get outside. I didn't set a time limit as far as how long I wanted to jog for. I didn't set a kilometer limit as far as how long I wanted to run for. I just told myself to get outside, and I can walk, I can run, I can go back and forth. And then the more I did that every day, eventually I actually learned to fall in love with running. And then once I actually fell in love with running, then I was able to tighten up my goals a little bit and push myself, knowing that the goal would be hard, but at least the activity would be fun because I was able to make it fun. So that's just a little bit of a tip for anybody who is trying to learn to love something when it's winter. Does anybody else want to add anything that they do self-care wise, indoor, outdoor, crafts, or it could just be something that you've had on your mind since last meeting and maybe is related that you want to share? It could be about, stroke recovery. It doesn't have to be related to what we're talking about today, because ultimately we want this space to be about support. So you can go ahead and share that as well. No. Well, hopefully that means you all feel supported. So that's great. We do have about 20 minutes left. So what maybe we'll do, Rachel, let me know what you think. One last call out to see if anybody has any last burning things they want to share. And then I know, Rachel, you had homework that you wanted to talk about as well. So nobody wants to share anything. Did you want to move on to that?
Yeah, maybe the homework assignment will also prompt some discussion. I'm curious to hear. Okay, so as you guys know, I love homework. I'm aware not everybody loves homework, but this one is really simple and I strongly encourage it. I do this for myself. I check in and do it every few months. For some people, I recommend doing it every week, every month, however often feels like it makes sense to you, or it could just be a one-time thing. What it is I would challenge everybody to create a daily maintenance list. So I don't know if that term would be familiar to anybody. It's just simply a list of things that you need to do every single day to maintain your wellness. And I encourage either writing it down digitally on paper in a journal, but somewhere that it's available to you. So even like putting it on, if you have a magnetic fridge, like putting it on your fridge, putting it on your night table, wherever it's going to be visible to you. And it's just a list, like I said, of things that you need to do every day, starting from stuff that you might not even think is necessary to write down on a list. Like, for example, for me, getting up at the same time every day, that's on my list, give or take 10, 15 minutes. Getting dressed, that's on my list. Like, it might not seem like it needs to be on your list, but there's days where I'm working from home all day. I could very easily spend the whole day wearing what I slept in, but I know I'm going to feel a lot better if I get dressed. Eating 3 meals, that's going to be on my list. And for me, I like to cook. So of my 3 meals, I want to cook at least one of them. Getting outside is going to be on my list. Like, I don't attach a certain amount of time to it. Like, normally getting outside for me will mean 20 minutes at a time. And if I'm feeling like going for a long walk, that's great. But I probably want to spend at least 20 minutes outside per day, but for anybody else, it could be 1 minute outside. The amount of physical exercise, which is literally just movement time. So I don't need to work out every day. That's not something that I feel I need to stay well. But I do want to be moving. So whether it's going for a walk or, you know, anything, but I want to be up and moving for a certain amount of time every day. And then just filling in the gaps with any of the things that you do for yourselves. So from the basic self-care, like I said, getting up same time, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, to, you know, if you are somebody that likes to do meditation or deep breathing or yoga, or, you know, even if it comes down to like the less fun but more productive things that you have to do, that you know you're going to feel better once you do, like one thing around the house or 1 or 3 things for your job. But if you have it on paper, you can almost use it as a checklist, and you can refer back to it if you're not feeling great, like you're just feeling down, or you're not really feeling motivated, or you're not just feeling your best. You can always refer back to this list and see, is there anything that I've maybe been neglecting for a few days that I need to check in on and say, okay, you know, maybe I actually haven't even been eating 3 full meals. I've been eating 2 meals, like skipping breakfast, and maybe that's contributing to my low energy or my lack of routine. But I find that it's a super handy tool to have on hand. So I'm curious, now I've put that out there, if there's anything that anyone thinks like right off the top of your head for sure would go on your list.
3 meals a day. It's hard to do 3 meals a day sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So what is a good method for doing that 3 meals a day? Because for me it's so hard, is because I do breakfast and I do dinner. That's it. I don't do that middle.
So what do you feel like gets in the way of doing lunch?
Because you don't feel like eating. You just like mostly what do you call it, drinking liquids like water or, you know, stuff like that.
Okay, so for you it's that you just don't typically get hungry midday, is that right?
If I'm gonna get hungry, I'll have a cookie or something like that, right? Like maybe a toast, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's very hard to do that middle one. You know, it's this mm-hmm. breakfast, dinner, and the middle one is very, very tough.
And what is typically your environment that time of day? Like, would you normally find yourself home or out?
I leave my house at 11 to go to my class. So my class starts at 12:30 at lunchtime till 3:30. When I come home, I eat my dinner, and that's it.
Okay. So that's a tough one because it doesn't naturally just fit into your day, and you're not getting that you're not getting that natural cue from your body that this is the time I need to eat. So you're going to need some kind of external strategy that's going to help remind you this is lunchtime, and you're going to feel better if you eat lunch, even if it's a small lunch.
But even if I'm at home, let's say Fridays I don't have classes. So even if I'm at home, lunchtime, I drink water and that's it. Or like I said, I'll get a biscuit or something like that, and that's all I'll do. So that's what I have a hard time with, right? Even at home, I'm like that if I'm home.
And what would you want to be eating for lunch? Like on days that you do eat lunch, what does that look like?
What do I want to eat? Like I'll probably have a sandwich, like make a tuna or something. If I want. But
okay, so I mean, just talking about like all these factors out loud, like you'd like to make a tuna sandwich, but you just don't really get the natural cue from your body, and sometimes with your schedule, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head that could work?
What I can do, I have no idea. No idea what will work, because when you're not used to it, right? You have do your morning and you do your evening. You're not used to it for that middle part, right? So
Yeah. I think, Caroline, did you have an idea?
Yeah, I just, for me, my stroke was migraine related. So, well, they think it was migraine related because you still don't really know why I had a stroke. But anyways, moving forward, I have to like try and prevent migraines as much as I can. And so I had to start eating, because I was like Haas, I used to, maybe just eat 2 meals a day. And pretty erratically, and not always good meals, or fast food, whatever, because I was busy, work, whatever. And so definitely after the stroke, now I try and eat something at least every 2 hours while I'm awake. And that definitely seems to have helped a lot. So even if I'm, going to the office for a few hours to work, I make sure like I have some snacks with me, just easy to go snacks. And even if I'm not hungry, I find that just making myself eat a little bit every 2 hours throughout the day has kept me from, binge eating, because I don't get super hungry where I used to get hangry all the time, where I had to like, you're so hungry, but you're busy, and you end up eating stuff that you shouldn't be eating. So yeah, I've been doing it for a year, and along with, the physical activity, like I've lost 40 pounds, and you just feel a lot better. And I find that just having that regular blood sugar seems to make a difference. I mean, for me, it's helped prevent migraines, but I think in general, I think it just helps you function better. So anyways, that's just my experience. And like I said, I always make sure now, no matter where I go, I always have a snack with me in my purse, in my jacket, wherever, that I can just easily grab a handful of granolas, or even if it's just 5 or 10 almonds, just something.
That's great. So I mean, it sounds like for sure on your daily maintenance list will be eating every 2 hours while you're awake. And then I also picked up on, give or take. I also picked up on like this preparedness factor. So preparing food for yourself ahead of time, whether it's like ready-made food or snacks or a meal. But it sounds like that's a big cue for you. Like you have the food, so you're gonna eat food. And not vice versa. I'm hungry, so I'm gonna make food. I already have food. So that cues you to eat the food.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, Haas, if you think that is something that could work for you, like pre-preparing so that it's available to you without you having to be the one to clue in that it's lunchtime.
Or I can do something like Caroline does, like every 2 hours have something to munch on, or something like almonds or something.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. That was helpful for me.
I love when that happens, when we like give each other tips. It's my favorite.
Does anybody else have any ideas, like things that that your wellness, physical, mental, is gonna decline if you don't do this thing every day? Yeah, Sarah?
Like you guys have mentioned, especially during COVID, and I'm currently not working because of my stroke. So like you had mentioned, sort of setting a routine, getting up at the same time of the day. I definitely found that has been helpful. Being at home, it's been difficult not sort of having a quote unquote normal routine, going to work and things like that. One thing that I have been trying to do, which I struggle with, but sort of just blocking out time, if you will. So for example, in the morning, I try and get up at the same time. And I've watched it forever, and I'm an 80-year-old, but I watch The Price is Right every morning. So that's kind of my me time. So for example, like too, I won't answer texts, I won't answer emails. If someone calls, I'll call them later. Kind of things like that. And then also it started kind of just with that 1 hour time, was kind of my time. And now I've kind of extended it to be like the whole morning, like up until noon, I don't respond to certain messages or emails or look at my phone,
That's great. So Price is Right is on your list.
Yeah.
Which I love.
It's Dream Car Week this week.
That's a good one too. I like that you included in that. Like, it's not just that it's your time to watch TV. It's also time to remove other distractors. I really like that. Because now, I mean, I know I have my phone with me almost all the time. And even no matter what I'm doing to relax, if there are messages coming in or if somebody calls, I'm going to be thinking about that. So knowing that this is time that you're not committing yourself to be available to anybody, you're only available to yourself, I really love that.
Just another thing with the phone I found helpful is sometimes people get mad I don't reply right away, but I'll just leave my phone in another room.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the morning when I get up, like just leave it in the bedroom. And yeah, I mean, people know where I am if they need to find me, but
yeah, that's even better. Like if it's not visible to you, out of sight, out of mind. Great, thanks, Sarah. Anybody else? Lara, I thought I saw your hand go up.
No, I don't, just listening, but I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay. I'll post on the Facebook group my list just as a reference for anybody who's interested. Ella, is there anything that you would put on your list?
Yeah, so I love that you brought this up. And part of me is like, "Oh, so I didn't invent this, you mean?" Because so I have a thing called self-care recipe. If anyone was at my my little feature that I did a few months ago, I think it was now, at one of these meetings, I talked about it. And you can also find it on our YouTube channel if you weren't there, but I call it the self-care recipe. To your idea, a list, a recipe, instead of just saying, to make a cake, you need these ingredients, but you also need to mix the ingredients a certain way. And you need to not just have butter, but it needs to be melted or it needs to be softened. So getting really specific with the different things I need kind of relates to how Sarah was saying, it's not just me time. It's specifically, I'm doing these things during me time. And so for me, I have my recipe or my list broken down into 6 different main categories. And a few of them I can think of off the top of my head. 9 hours of sleep, which for some people is like, holy guacamole, that's a lot. And I can tell you, I don't get it every night, but if it's been a few nights with me getting less than that, I can feel it in my body for sure. I do intermittent fasting. I don't know if it's necessarily something that I would put on my list, but I can notice I binge eat a lot, so that helps me not to binge eat and actually eat more healthy and more regularly. And so yeah, maybe intermittent fasting would be on my list, or at least starting off my first meal with the most healthiest one I can. And then another one would be make sure I'm in my head at least telling myself or congratulating myself when I do things that I deserve congrats for. Because I often don't do that, especially, you know, working from home. I didn't have anybody else to do it either. And so I have to actually, I have to do that. I have to take the 2 seconds to stop and say, Ella, good job, when I think I did something well. And that just keeps me sane. And it's really good for my self-care. So that would be on my list as well.
Yeah, that's great. I like the visualization of the recipe. Sorry, I wasn't here for that meeting that you spoke at.
Oh yeah, no problem.
But I like the term recipe. I'd almost want to like create a version of it that's not just a self-care recipe, but just a wellness recipe.
Yeah,
So to
yeah.
include things that you're doing for work, any of your responsibilities at home with your family, whatever it might be, but just to include all areas of your life. That's all these things that will contribute to your wellness. And I also like what you said about specificity. I think an important thing when you're making a daily maintenance list, and some people might decide, hey, I don't want to pressure myself to do these things every day. I'm going to make a weekly maintenance list and just brainstorm the things that I need to do at least once a week. So for example, working out, going to see friends, whatever it might be. But with the daily list, I just want to encourage everybody to keep it as realistic as possible. And typically, like the more specific it is, the more likely to follow through. So for example, instead of just saying get up at the same time every day, I'll put on my list, get up at 7:30. That's the time that I get up. And that way I know if I'm looking at my list and I'm looking at my alarm for tomorrow, okay, 7:30 is the time I'm going to get up. I don't have to think back to, well, what time did I get up every other day this week? How do I make sure it's the same? So anyway, we're at almost 5:30.
Oh yeah,
So-
I'm like it's 8:30.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, 5:30. Yes. So yeah, I mean, we are wrapping up kind of at the perfect time, but if anybody has any final remarks or any last minute questions or anything you just want to share that they didn't get a chance to share yet, now is the time.
And I will turn off the recording if you feel more comfortable sharing something off the recording as well. So I'll do that.